Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and you see Mike is on assignment. No, he's back in the house. We got Mike. What's up, Wonder Dog?
What's going on, Doc? What's up, CB?
We got CB on assignment. He's out there at McGregor Park. Watching the first game of the 3-game set, the second to be played this time in McGregor, as Prairie View and Texas Southern are in game 1. Charles, quickly get us an update before we get into the show.
Yeah, Prairie View just went ahead 2-1 here at McGregor Park as they get up and going here. I tell you what, it has been some layup gems thus far, Dr. Bill. Texas Southern and Prairie View playing a tremendous defensive ball game thus far. Prairie View has scratched out a couple runs here in the top of the 4th inning as they go up 2-1 here at McGregor Park. Winds blowing out to left field, and I tell you what, like I said, there have been a couple of web gems thus far. Texas Southern had a picture-perfect relay in the home, cut down a runner at home plate. And then you also had a absolute web gem from Prairie View center fielder who stretched out. I hope they got that on camera somewhere, because that is definitely got to be, based on what I've seen on Sports Center, got to be a top 10 play.
Oh, nice update, great update. And we'll come out there periodically and get some updates. And I'm glad you were able to show a little bit of action as you saw the runner. The second run, I guess it was, come across the plate. So great timing as you were able to show that and let us know what's going on. Welcome to episode 264 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, from our home studio. Sending a signal live to KQH 1230 AM studios with Texas Radio Multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Southern University from Houston, Texas. As we said, Charles Bishop is right there at McGregor Park. With that being said, without further ado, what a lot of folks want to talk about is Nick Saban and his comments for last night. We might play the jest where he really gets his foot in his mouth for me. I'll just be quite frank with it. I really have no time to kid around with it in terms of him speaking Wednesday night to Birmingham to more than 100 local business leaders in Alabama. Coach Nick Saban once again offered strong thoughts about involving use of name, image, and likeness revenue in college football. I'm going to get your thoughts, but I frankly thought this was just poor from Nick Saban in terms of his ability to navigate his space. This is a guy with so much privilege. He can't even comprehend in terms of what he's doing because he really did that. But Jumbo Fisher really lighted him up in terms of his God complex. And I was like, dang, I didn't think I was going to go that hard, but he really was pissed off. We might even get a little bit about that. And then Deion Sanders' comments were appropriate, and I'm sure he's just getting started because he tweeted and said he will respond. But my thoughts, Nick is deflecting from his most recent failures. These were Birmingham businessmen and women were asking Nick questions about his most recent failures, i.e. losing the championship game, losing to Texas A&M last year, Both in his case, those were previous coaching assistants where he had never lost to them before, not being able to have the #1 class. And a lot of people were asking questions instead of manning up and saying, hey, we're going to get in the trenches, we're going to go back to work. He just couldn't accept it. He took the easy way out, or what he thought was easy way out. Now he's starting to find out that everybody don't see him as the God that he think he is, no matter how well they think he might be as a coach. So before I get in and ask you all your thoughts, Coach Prime did tweet out and says, you best believe I'll address this lie. He capitalized L-I-E. Coach Saban told tomorrow, which would be today, I was awakened by my son, Shador Sanders, that sent me the article stating that we paid Travis Hunter $1 million to play at Jackson State. We as a people don't have to pay our people to play with our people. That last statement reverberates for me on many different levels, and it's coded for those that understand and those that don't may want to try to figure out how they can understand, because boy, we put it right there in many people's faces. But let's take this quick break and then I come back, because I want to give y'all some significant time to be able to get your thoughts in here. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We'll be right back after this first quick break.
Support the Black College.
It's NBA TV, and baby, the SWAC is back. The Lady Rattlers and the Lady Tigers start the show. Then the champ is here. Last season, TSU's men captured the SWAC title, but FAMU anxiously awaits their arrival. Coverage begins Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on NBA TV.
Let's get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
The analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Charles, I see you looking good with your mic out there. I see you hear a little bit of action. You look good on screen. Don't worry, we got you. But let me go to Mike first. I'm gonna save some of your thoughts because I think they may be some of the points. So, Mike, what were your thoughts? And first, let me ask, when did you hear about this?
I saw it on Twitter when I saw Deion's. I followed Deion Sanders, and I was like, what is he talking about? Then I started looking. I was like, oh, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. I wish there was a more professional way to say that, but I was like, no, he didn't. And then I think, you point out, you look at the context behind it, who he was talking to, and it's about accountability and responsibility. Here he has the opportunity to take accountability and responsibility for some things that just didn't work out. And he did that old playground move. Oh, but look at him. But look at them. And I don't think Jimbo or Deion are the ones to be played with. Because they ain't going to clap back. Really. They are not the ones to be messed with. Jimbo got that Texas move. So he is not the one to be messed with. I don't think he wants that smoke. And then I don't know, somebody said, I don't know if Affleck called him or what, but he's come back and apologized and or whatever. But to me, the damage is done. That was just piss poor and talk about a hypocrite. All those 5-star recruits he had, and he dares to bring this one athlete up and put his name in the limelight. I agree with Shannon Sharp. I think it's despicable. I think it's disrespectful. And I think it's just a lack of poor leadership, accountability, and responsibility.
Yeah, great point. And it was confusing that was made while you were talking. That's kind of how a lot of people play. But I'm gonna go to you, Charles. So go ahead, unmute it, get back into the music form. I know it's going hot and heavy. Again, the question comes to you is, where were you and what time did you hear about it?
Yeah, it was about 9:30 or so. Again, I saw the tweet, and I went to one of the news sources and saw what Nick Saban was talking about, and I started laughing immediately because at best, Mike said it. You know, it was deflecting, it was tone deaf, and for a lot of people, it is just unconscionable, unfathomable that an HBCU would have access to the number one player in the country, much less get it. And I think that still has a lot of coaches around the country in shock that Travis Hunter actually chose Jackson State HBCU over one of the Power 5 schools. And it's still, you know, one of those things that it shook the world when it happened, and it's still shaking the world.
Right. I think that's some of the most amazing points about this is how much this continued to reverberate and let you know just how significant the move was. We debated for a while. I mean, many people debated just how significant of a move this was. One, with FAMU, Bethune-Cookman coming to the SWAC, Dion coming to Jackson State, all of them playing, the way the season played out, prime time and Coach Prime, as he likes to be called, in regards to what he was able to navigate and the attention that he brings, and then landing the number one player in the country, and then right back to that, landing another top 50 player also that doesn't necessarily get the same resonance, but those that follow it understand how significant that is. And then you talking about at least the most decorated current coach having the audacity or the need, the fact that he felt that he had to put a dig says a lot in terms of where we are. So my follow-up question in some ways is just to talk about that. What does this mean in terms of moving forward? You know, a lot of people, as I was listening and talking about this last night on the show and giving some framework from a business perspective, so I won't necessarily go over that again. And we might have some time in the second half of the show, maybe to steal a little bit of that. But I want to move forward in terms of what does this mean in terms of Jackson State University, since we're focusing more on HBCUs. What does it mean for the SWAC and HBCUs in general? Does this legitimize what Coach Prime is doing more than it is a negative? Obviously, when you first hear it, there's a negative connotation to it. You've already had the fact that Nick had to back off of that. To some ways, I guess about as much as you can get to it, had to apologize in regards to how you had media cycles, African-American professional medias. Shannon Sharp went off. You had different folks throughout
Skip Bayless
on ESPN, Skip Bayless on ESPN, folks that were literally going off, folks that for most guards will play it safe or narrow. They might be, you know, something like that. And certainly, but they went in a lot of ways of saying that, no, this ain't right. This is not what I'm feeling. Point guard from Duke, he really had some poignant words in terms of his show as he had Coach Prime and what he felt and how little Nick Saban was in regards to putting at HBCU and Jackson State in terms of what they're trying to get done in the resource deprivation that we know exists. And the thought process that he makes more money in terms of his contract than Jackson State had their overall budget, but somehow they're supposed to play $1 million. And what's ridiculous is that you got some folks, HBCUs, African Americans in general, that even question and still to some degree won't believe it. That is crazy. But moving forward, what are your thoughts on that? Go ahead, Mike.
Number one, I think it brings light to at least the impact also of NIL. I think NIL has some impact in here. And I don't know if it's completely leveling the playing ground, but it's allowing others to get that light. And the fact that Nick Saban points this out, really, once you get past the initial upset, to get past initial hypocrisy, That's giving light to not only Jackson State but other HBCUs. Well, if Nick Saban, who gets all these 5 stars, is upset about it, there must be something to this HBCU thing. There must be something to this NIL thing, and then it's leveling the ground. So those are my initial thoughts. Is what does this NIL thing have to do, and how is it helping HBCUs get more of a presence, get more of a stage? So if you got stars like Travis Hunter and others that are looking at Jackson State, I think it can only help up the exposure of other HBCUs. So that's my initial thought. I also think on the other side, I don't know how much you care or not, but Alabama was that dog in terms of getting 5-star. Well, guess what? Texas A&M, a couple of others are kind of moving up. And how much has that impacted their traditional, or I guess recent historic reign as that big dog that's getting the so-called big recruits?
Correct. Yeah, you're talking about, it's not leveling the playing field, unless spreading the talent out, which means your deprivation of your talent is a lot different, which means you have smaller groups of error where people can really now start to question your coaching ability versus just over-talented everybody and people thinking you're the mad scientist, and I mean that. Before I let you in here, Charles, let's go ahead and play the part of the video where Nick mentions Jackson State. For those that may have not seen it, we won't play the whole thing, but I do want to have some context. Pretty much, I'm sure our viewers have seen it, but just in case, let's go ahead and play it now. As we're lining up to get ready to play that segment, let me go to you, Charles, and go ahead and get your thoughts, and then we'll play it after that. And go to a break and come back after that.
Sure. You know what I think? There's a nuance to no, you're not going to be able to fight these Power 5 schools for the type of money that's there. But I think the thing that I have noticed that Coach Prime is really selling to recruits is the cultural aspect of playing in front of your own. And that is something that really resonates. A lot of recruits to actually go to this Jackson State and see this sea of blackness watching it play. In a lot of ways, a lot of these young men have not had this sort of environment, and it's nurturing. It's something that is powerful for them to see. So that is something that I don't think you can discount with regard to the way he's going about recruiting and the way he's selling the cultural experience of playing for HBCU. And he's framing it in a manner that is really captivating young men. And I can't say enough about that. It's huge.
Yeah, to your point, and with the music playing, I just wanted people to make sure that they were able to dig in there, is talking about him tying in the culture. You have so many people talking about the culture, whether that is African-American Black culture, or specifically even more so the HBCU culture, which is a subset of that culture that is even more unique, and how folks can have an attachment and affinity to that. I actually did a study back in my master's player when my brother was playing at Texas, and interviewed a lot of players from Texas that had that same framework, and that's 20-some years ago. And it's amazing that now that you had this unique moment that we're actually seeing it play out. So let's focus. Let's get into this break, and on the other side, we'll come back and play that video for you to at least get you a little more inside of that. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with the second half of the show.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Player to come to school, it was in the paper, and they bragged about it. There are rules, just like Nate said. We have a rule right now that says you cannot use name, image, and likeness to entice a player to come to your school. Hell, read about it in the paper. I mean, Jackson State paid a guy $1 million last year that was a really good Division I player to come to school. It was in the paper, and they bragged about it. Nobody did anything about it.
Well, Nick, something got to tell you when you making the TMZ blotter, it's not always good. It's usually it's not very good. Somebody need to let Nick know just a little bit. It's not all golden. I was like, oh, it's going so fast. I said, oh man, that's not nice. What are you going to take? Then he said Jackson State. I said, oh my God, I said, he done lost his mind. I said he done lost it. I said all this he didn't gave it up for doing the little stupid stuff. All the years that he tried to lie and have a different persona, now you got to do it. We'll go in.
This was probably the one day, Dr. Ville, that Alcorn and Southern and every HBCU was going to side with Jackson State about something.
Yeah, you got a major issue. You got FAMU, you got Southern, you got Alcorn, Grambling saying, oh, no, you didn't. He picking on my brother. We finna go in. He got even A and T. They're going in a different direction. Talking about what? No, we not having this. Not today. So that just shout out to Juan Hill as he's PV versus TSU baseball game, checking it all out. So he's out there. We'll give him some love in terms of seeing that action. I'll certainly be out there tomorrow and Saturday. Get in there. Let's get a chance to see if we can do some of Jimbo's response. Again, we won't play the whole thing. Just wanted to get in a little bit. Obviously, I told you I read Coach Prime, and I can't wait to his response, whether it's directly or indirectly. His comments are going to be something that I'm sure that people can't wait to hear for various reasons. And the way that he just sitting on it is also going to be something special, and don't think that that's not intentional. Let's see if we can go ahead and play a little bit of the Jimbo from Texas A&M, his response when I say he was hotter than fish grease. I'm not a Texas A&M fan. Don't watch SEC, whatever. Nick and, all of them can miss me in terms of what they have to work it, what gets it on. But it was hilarious to see the level of mad Jim Rome. And you talking about throwing the gloves off in a lot of ways. And the fact that some of that innocence that they, kind of talk to you about, this quote unquote brotherhood at the coaches and all these kind of things and how they work together, that is no longer going to be the case for Jimbo and his thoughts on Nick. And he let everybody know Nick ain't as clean as y'all might want to be. Let's see if we can play a little bit about that.
I don't cheat and I don't lie. So I learned that when I was a kid. If you did, the old man slapped you side of the head. Maybe somebody should have slapped him.
Oh, yeah. He called the man God, narcissist. You got out there in the Mimi world, whether you think this is a funny or not, those memes, they are hilarious in what various directions. You got somebody out there in the shirt talking about if you want to play for a coach that is not a narcissist.
Collectives, schools, programs, collectives, universities, collectives. Are you aware of what they do, how they go about it, and so forth? Okay. So you have no knowledge of any of
They
that
have
in terms of-
collectives. I know there's a collective here. I don't know who's got what, when's got what. Had no idea last year. That is not what we do or what we're about.
I was going to say that's by design.
What happens now?
Is there some thought on collectives, schools, programs, collectives, universities, collectives? Are you aware of Is there some thought on collectives, schools, programs, collectives, universities, collectives? Are you aware of what they do, how they go about it, and
No, I'm
so
not.
forth? Okay.
I'm
So
not
you have
involved in
no
those circles.
knowledge of any of
They
that
have
in terms of-
collectives. I know there's a collective here. I don't know who's got what, when's got what. Had no idea last year. That is not what we do or what we're about.
I was going to say, that's by design, you saying, hey, I'm staying out of this. and you do
Yeah, I
what you
mean,
do.
how am I going to, I mean, I have no sponsorships in those things. And that's the truth. Well, listen, I'm going to tell you one thing. You can call me anything you want to call me. You ain't calling me a cheat. I don't cheat and I don't lie. So I learned that when I was a kid. If you did, The old man slapped you side of the head. Maybe somebody should have slapped him. But that's one thing you don't. Now you're fooling with their name.
If you're thinking about buying
you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I'm not gonna tell y'all what y'all missed for those 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not sure that Drew was probably protecting us with some of the words we use, so he made sure the volume wasn't there. I'm gonna leave it at that. That way we protect everybody with the niceties as you is. You're getting a little background and seeing what's going on with some live action at McGregor Park in Houston, Texas, as you have the second part of the rivalry series, Prairie View in Texas Southern University. This is an intriguing one. Prairie View's tied for first place in the Western Division, and Texas Southern is tied with Grambling for second spot. So these series will go a long way, as all 4 of the teams are obviously in the tournament, but seeding is everything oftentimes in the tournament, especially with this new field of the top 4 teams in each division really being solid. So it's going to be fascinating to see how all this works out. Looks like you have a quick timeout as coach has gone to the line. Until you start to update for top team.
Yeah, no doubt. You got Texas Southern's up 3-2 here in the top of the 5th inning, but Prairie View has the bases loaded right now. That's why you have a meeting of the minds here on the mound, as they have a little bit of a rally going. A couple hit batters, I should say, in the inning. Base hit there, and now they've got the bases loaded here. They're knocking on the door, so it looks like we're going to have a pitching switch here. We're going to bring in another pitcher, and we'll pick action up here in probably 5 minutes or so as the pitcher warms up.
So what's the score again in the inning?
Texas Southern is up 3-2.
What inning?
They're in the 5th inning.
Thanks.
Hey Charles,
So,
who's on the mound? Who's on the mound for the Tigers?
They haven't mentioned his name yet, and I don't have a roster here in front of me, Mike. So I don't have a name for the young man, but they're bringing in their second pitcher. The first pitcher went 4 2/3 here, so he's gotten a little bit of trouble here. He's hit about 4 batters, a little bit of control issues thus far, and that's led to what could be. The wind is going out pretty tough in the field, so you can have fireworks out here.
Should be good. Should be good. Great update information. And when you talk about the fact that game's going back and forth, obviously at Texas Southern take the early 1-0 lead. Prairie View fought back for 2-1. And then you seen Texas Southern fight back in themselves and take a 3-2 lead. But you have Prairie View threatening with the bases loaded. So I'm sure Professor Bishop will keep us updated as he is live on assignment. Getting back to the MEAC tournament as it starts this weekend. Again, SWAC is next weekend in Birmingham, and the action, whether it's in the East and the West, will determine the seedings. But when you talk about the tournament here, the number 2 seed versus number 4, a number 3 seed is going to be Coppin State squaring off on as the number 2 seed against the number 3 seed Maryland Eastern Shore. You have top seed Delaware State facing off the number 4 seed Norfolk State. So, Mike, what are your thoughts in the MEAC You've seen a little separation at the end, but all these teams are being played, and the tournament is being held in the home stadium of Norfolk State in terms of Marty L. Miller Field. Do you think that will make any difference as that kicks off today and ends on Saturday?
You like to think it'd have some, but I think at the end of the day, Doc, I think it's going to come to pitching. So I think Delaware State, they finished the season strong. They number one season. They're the number one team. They average ERA for their team is the best in the MEAC. That they didn't start out the season that way. They weren't that in that place in the middle of the season. If you put a bookmark at where they were in the middle of the season, so somewhere along the line they picked up some momentum. So yes, you like to think that home field does play a part, but I think at the end of the day, when you get into the tournament, it's how your arms are going or how your pitching rotation is going. And a lot of times, depending on how you finish in that seeding, that determines your pitching rotation. You know, are you going to pitch your stronger pitchers first, or are you going to, pitch some of the middle of your rotation first, and then look into your backup or your relievers? So a lot of that depends on. So there's a lot of jockeying, and it's what you said. It's how you finish the regular season. But I think Delaware State is looking good going in. That they're hot going into the tournament. So I look for them to do very well.
To your point, Bodden gives Delaware State a walk-off win over Norfolk State. That was number 1 against number 4, but Delaware State holds on, gets it done 7-6 over Norfolk State. So it's fascinating there. The next game is upon us now in terms of, as I said, number 2 versus number 3. So interesting to see how that is going. Just to give you a little update in terms of that news. It's fascinating in terms of the MEAC with so much involved in regarding that. And can give you a score update there. It is 9-6 in the bottom of the 6th inning, with Coppin State leading Maryland Eastern Shore 9-6. Again, in the bottom of the 6th, there's one out there. A game kind of went back and forth. Maryland Eastern Shore jumped out to a 6-0 lead, but then Coppin State scored 3 in the bottom of the 3rd and came back and put up a 6th spot in the bottom of the 4th, where we are now at 9-6. With that, any thoughts in terms of just the MEAC, Professor Bishop Charles, in terms of what's going on there? Some of the scores I give you early in that tournament?
Yeah, I think Mike mentioned that Delaware State was on the upswing going into the tournament. What's curious to me with the 4 teams is the familiarity that these teams are going to have with each other, especially the pitching. So I'm wondering, is that going to lead to some high-scoring tournament games? Because you've seen the battery for the most part. You've seen a lot of the arms that you'll be going against in the tournament. So it'll be curious to see how things turn out there in Norfolk, playing it. They're on their home field, but like Mike said, Delaware State has been on the upswing going into it, and they have the best arms going into the tournament. So we'll see if they can hold on to claim the MEAC crown, and we'll have a new MEAC champion. Looks like.
Yep.
Yeah, fascinating. When we turn the page going to the SWAC, these are your matchups for this week. Obviously, we told you about the one that we are there and giving you some updates live, which is Prairie View on the road in Houston at Texas Southern University rivalry game. You go into the East, you have quite a few rivalries set up. You have Bethune-Cookman at FAMU. That's going to be a matchup in terms of some of the top teams there. You have Jackson State at Mississippi Valley. Jackson State is clearly in the 4th seed, but like to have some good momentum, especially after they swept FAMU and dropped them out of the top spot last weekend. They want to continue that momentum. And they're playing a Valley team that would like to close out the season strong, been kind of updated, more competitive of the late. And then you have the battle of Alabama with Alabama State and Alabama A&M. Differently in the West, you have Grambling State that is hot of late, obviously. With the 2 weeks ago, they took 2 out of 3 from Prairie View, but they did lose 2 out of 3 from Texas Southern. But they would like to have that seeding. They have Arkansas Pine Bluff that struggled. It is on the road. So can they get the sweep, or will they let 1 or 2 get away? You would expect Southern to be able to find a way to at least hold on to a share of a championship, even somehow Prairie View as a sweep Texas Southern, which you would not think in that battle takes place. So if they can find a way to sweep a struggling Alcorn State, they will fight through the season and come out West champions when 2-3 weeks ago, you wouldn't have thought it, but they're back in a position to have that number 1 seed. So those are some of the things that are fascinating to me in terms of what's going on in this division. So just to make it clear for everybody, you again in the West, you have Texas Southern getting it done in terms of tied with Grambling in the West at 17-10. Texas Southern won 2 straight, last 2 games against Grambling, and Grambling lost those last 2 games, obviously. So at 17-10. And then you have Southern and Prairie View tied at 18-9. Prairie View has lost last 4 games. They lost 5 of their last 6 conference games. Southern has won 3 straight. So I'm going to go to you in terms of the West, Mike, and then you can talk about the East, which features Alabama at the top, a 2-game lead, 20-7. So they need to be strong in terms of finishing out against Alabama A&M to hold on to that spot, because FAMU is in striking distance, pun intended, at 18-9. Bethune-Cookman sitting at 18-10. That rivalry matchup is going to be big in terms of where they'll be seated. And I obviously told you about Jackson State and Mississippi Valley, but Jackson State sits at 13-14. In terms of all that's going on, Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of some of these big games this last weekend, whether it is to hold on to a divisional championship or at least put yourself in position in terms of where you want to be seated in the tournament, if there's such a thing this year?
Yeah, so let's start with the East, Alabama State. They're in the lead because of their percentage. They're overall 21-6. However, they lost decisively against FAM, 3 straight. Now that was in Tallahassee, but you're talking about the team with arguably the best supposed pitching staff in the SWAC. And here they lost 3 straight condensing. I think it was like 12-5. There was another 11-7. And you kind of scratching your head like, who do they have left in the rest of the season? And I believe they have a stand with Alabama A&M, and that's in Huntsville. So you wonder how they're going to do against, Alabama A&M. So we'll see. Then you have Prairie View, who's still sitting at the top of the West, but they lost 3 straight to Southern, who's their last 6 games. I think they won 6 of their last 7 games. I think their only loss was to Lamar. So Southern is looking hot going into the season. So, Prairie View has this stance against with TSU, but I think, to me, if they want to be seated good, I think they have to have a good showing against Texas Southern. I don't know who they have on the mound, what their reputation is. Their bats are hot still. They still have 3 of the top 10 batters in the SWAC, but I think they have to have a good showing against Texas Southern in this 3 games instead. Texas Southern, I think, is like 4th in the West, but they are looking really good as we come down to the end of the season. So I hope Prairie View would, light it up at least on the bat side, and hopefully their pitching remains at least somewhat constant. But that's Southern. That's a scary. They're looking good as we go as we head toward the tournament. Pit on both sides of the, at the plate and in the field.
Charles, let me go ahead and get your thoughts in terms of the seedings we're talking about, some of these key matchups, and how they will figure out just the seeding going to Birmingham next week with that tournament starting off Wednesday.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. Who would have expected Southern to make the final kick that they did, where they're in striking distance now of the SWAC Western title, huge for the Southern Jaguars, and you expected them to take care of business this weekend against Alcorn. Pivotal matchup here, Texas Southern, Prairie View. Prairie View kind of stubborn toe a little bit down the stretch. They were in, the driver's seat, if you will, and now they allow the Jaguars in there. You take a look over there at the East. Alabama State has been the most consistent baseball team. I think Jackson State with a sweep of Mississippi Valley, I think, can take some momentum into the tournament next week. That was huge, the Super Band this past weekend. So we'll see what that means for Jackson State in terms of playing in the tournament going forward, especially with regards to seeding. Because I don't know if you really want to, that number 1 versus number 4 seed is going to be a really interesting early matchup. Looking at the potential Alabama State and Jackson State going in early. So it should be fun. I wanted to update it over here at McGregor Park. Prairie View had a bases loaded, but they had a strikeout and then they grounded out to short at the end of the game. They weren't able to scratch a run across. So it's still 3-2 Texas Southern here in the sixth inning.
Oh, big play for Texas Southern University, coming in with the pitcher, being able to get out of that inning with the bases loaded at that time with one out and getting a strikeout and then a ground ball in the evening. Big time baseball. And you see, you get a chance right after the show, or if you want to watch it as you're getting over to get on to McGregor Park, if not today, certainly for the rest of the weekend, Friday and Saturday, you should see this type of games all weekend long. And also make sure you keep up with the other baseball updates. With that, before we get to a close, I did want to give an update in terms of Black College 9 as poll came out, week number 7, as we started to close things down. Get the small school poll, or what we call mid-major poll rankings. Top 5 teams you can go to, again, to Black College 9 to get those updates. You know who the number 1 is, but I'm still going to go from 5 to 1. You can get the entire top 10, again, at blackcollege9s.com. That's West Virginia State finishes out of the MEAC at 25-20, as they were last week 1-3, previous rank in the poll 3, so they do fall 2 spots. Bring us to number 4, Savannah State, pretty hot throughout the season, didn't do so well in the tournament and didn't get a chance in terms of denying the bid that they were going to get to play in the Black College World Series, as they decided to close out the season. They're 1-2, previous ranked 2, so they dropped 2 spots at 34-12 after a very solid season. At number 3, you have Albany State, SIC 5-4. A lot of baseball played that week, played solid, as they were 32-16, so they stay at the 3 spot. Bring us to number 2. Kentucky State makes a great run in the tournament, wins the NCAA Division II division, and just falls to the number 1 team, Edward Waters. So Kentucky State out of the SIC finished at 25-24. Edward Waters closed out the season as the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference NEI champion and the HBCU Black College champion at 28-27, getting it done. Obviously, you have 4 of the top 5 teams out of the NCAA Division II, the top team out of the NAIA. But as you look at it, the top 4 teams will be all in the SIC Division II level, based on how the poll ended, as Edward Waters is transitioning from the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference in NAIA to the SIC Division II. Shout out to Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, the coaches, and the commissioner, Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes, giving a shout out, as well as the SIC coaches giving a shout out to Edward Waters for getting it done. What are your thoughts, Mike, in terms of the top 5 ranking for the small division or the mid-major division?
No, just hats off to Edward Waters. You know, they're moving up. Their program is growing. So phenomenal performance. Hats off to Edward Waters. They deserve to be where they are. So,
with that, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of that top 5 for the small mid-major division of the poll?
We had a coach on this past Tuesday. I can't say enough about that program. If they get ready to move up and play Division II baseball, SIC should be
No doubt about it. Let's get into this top 5. See what your thoughts there. Delaware State, MEAC jumped into the top 5 in week number 7. They have been 6-0 the last 2 weeks, so playing some really good baseball. Told you they got the win. Close one, but they got the win in the MEAC tournament to kick things off. They are 23-21. They were previously ranked 8, so they jump up 3 spots, I should say. At number 4, Florida A&M out of the SWAC, 4-3 over the last week. Previously ranked 3, so they drop a spot at 25-26. At number 3, you have Prairie View A&M, 1-5. They were previously ranked 1, but they just dropped 2 spots, 28-23. Texas Southern jumps up 2 spots, as they are 5-2 over the week, and previous ranked 4, 26-22. Number 1 is Alabama State out of the SWAC, 3-5. during this period. They were previously ranked 2, but they jump up to the number 1 spot at 27-22. Sticking with you, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of the large division or major division top 5 programs here in the Black College Nines ranking?
I think they got it on the head. I think when you take a look at Alabama State, Texas Southern, and FAMU, those are all teams that play some tremendous baseball. One of the things I'm so impressed with Texas Southern baseball, when they get on the base paths, they are terror. They've stolen over 200 bases this past season, and I tell you what, when they get on base, you have to be aware of what their runners are doing. I asked for Prairie View today. They picked off a couple of runners. That's how aggressive Texas Southern is. I got a baseball coming my way, Doc.
All right, go to the mic. Let's see. Oh, Charles, you should put your hand out there and call it. It was right there. Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of the large major division top 5? Again, you can go to the Black College Nines and see the entire top 10, but you heard the top 5. What are your thoughts as Charles refuses to make a dive, as he's talking about not trying to get on television? He talked about all the highlights, but he won't even make his own. Go ahead, Mike.
I want a baseball to give me a snow cone. You know back in the day, baseball, you go get free snow cone on a drink or something. I think they hit it on it. Even though Alabama State has faltered, I think they still have them the number 1 team, correct? So,
yes,
I think the question, the head scratcher for me is Texas Southern over Prairie View. Good point. Let us see. If you look at head to head, looks like we have an injury.
Yeah. Well, that baseball that I said was coming in my direction. You had the first baseman and the catcher. They collided right here at the fence. So they're taking a look at the catcher right now for Prairie View as he's a little shaken up there.
Okay, keep us updated on that. But we're about to come to a close. Let you get back into it. I know you're going to be able to call a little bit of action. So for those that want to continue, tell them where they can listen to the rest of the Prairie View Texas Southern baseball game if they can't get out there this evening.
Yes, I'll be on the Open Mic Network via Spreaker, where you can catch some of the Texas Southern and Prairie View baseball game.
With that, I also want to give a shout out to Tyler Carr, HBCU Game Day. He had me on to talk about the ASUN and WAC collab, just give you some updates. And we talked about some other FCS business, NCAA information in terms of what the landscape is at the FCS level. Even got a little bit of the Division I Transformation Committee. So if you want to hear about some of that dialogue, go ahead and check out HBCU Game Day on YouTube. And you check out the interview with Impact Strategy and WAC on the Coppin collaboration. That'll do it for us. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. We'll bring AD Drew back in next week because he's actually going to Norfolk to catch the rest of the MEAC tournament this weekend. So he'll really be able to give us some inside information on what that looks like. Obviously, I'll be in Birmingham with the Deuce next weekend, and we'll come back and make sure we give you some highlights in terms of what's going on in Birmingham. That's right. Give him the treatment. He just stuck in the background. So he's here on the mic. Talking about as he is doing his thing. We look forward to next week to discuss the latest news in the lab. Thanks for all those sticking with us as we jumped off just a tad bit, but we're going to bring it to you hot and heavy. Dr. Kenyatta Cavil on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, giving our thoughts on the Nick Saban framework, Coach Prime, as well as Jimbo Fisher. So hope you enjoyed that insight. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube and Facebook. Make sure you go check out the pregame show. They already put some updates to give you some insights on how they think, and I'm sure they'll provide you some detailed insight information. So make sure if you really want to get some pure thoughts, you'll get what the general public get. But if you want to get some insight in terms of what's going on in Jackson State, go to the pregame show with Neely and Charles Bishop. They'll give you there. Just had some great love for ONG, the strike zone, in terms of what's going on at FAMU as they're transitioning, looking for their AD, those things. Obviously, 1876 podcast with Mike and the rest of the team, Joe Clay, Alan Williams, myself, and name a couple of other ones out there, letting you know what's going on there. In regards to that, would be remiss if I did not talk about Brian and AD of the Sports Wrap that probably give you the best overall coverage multiple times a week, as they do it both in front and behind the scenes of the camera. So want to make sure we give some love there. Download my JBN, my BCSN. Before we tune off, any last update, Prairie View in terms of the health of that player? Is he back on his feet?
Yeah, he is back on his feet. He was able to actually did a tremendous job in terms of making the catch to get out the in and out. Prairie View has got a runner on first base as they're trying to get a little rally going here in the sixth inning.
Oh, this is good. It's going to go down to the stretch with that. I want to say dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Mike?
Lecture.
Dismiss.